Often people question their origins and the ancestry of individuals of Japanese and indigenous descent. They wonder if the Bible mentions the origin of these groups and if there's any biblical character that can be related to the Japanese, Chinese, and indigenous peoples. Surprisingly, the Bible and ancient Jewish traditions offer answers to these questions, despite some claiming that China is never mentioned in biblical texts regarding Chinese ancestors. However, the truth is that the Bible does mention more than one character in this context. In this video, I will explore the figure of Sin Roshan, considered the progenitor of the Chinese according to the Bible, and discuss his origin in yet another episode of our series on the origins of peoples according to the Bible. The Bible mentions a character named Tegarmah, who is part of the lineage of Japheth. According to the book of Ezekiel, Tegarmah is considered one of the ancestors of the Far Eastern peoples. The book describes the house of Tegarmah and its troops. Furthermore, there is another Asian origin that can be traced back to a different biblical character, who is considered one of the ancestors of the Chinese. This character has his lineage connected to Canaan. Interestingly, neither he nor his people are mentioned or seen by Joshua and Moses as enemies of the Israelites, unlike other Canaanites. This character is known as Sin, also called Shine, and his name is remarkably similar to various terms, including the name China itself. In Hebrew, his name is pronounced as Shimi and may have meanings related to peat, clay, or mud, although some suggest a meaning associated with the moon. Sin, the son of Canaan, is part of the lineage of Ham, who is the son of Noah. Therefore, he was one of Noah's grandsons, being one of the 11 sons of Canaan. Sin is indirectly mentioned in the Bible through his descendants, known as Sinians in the Portuguese version and Sinites in the English version. These different ways of naming the people can be confusing. It is believed that the Sinians, who were Sin's people, the Chinese, had their origins in Zim, a coastal city north of Phoenicia. Interestingly, the Sinians were not one of the Canaanite tribes that Joshua received divine orders to destroy, which possibly places them under the influence of the prefix Shin, related to Proto-Chinese settlement in the eastern lands called Sin-ar or Ma-Sin, the land of sin. It is believed that the curse of Canaan did not apply to one of his sons, and this son may have been the ancestor of the ancient Chinese, due to the Sinites or Sinians not inhabiting the land of Canaan, which did not belong to them, according to ancient Jewish beliefs and traditions. As described in the Book of Jubilees, the identification of Sin and the Sinians as the Chinese or ancestors of the Chinese is intriguing, especially because the Sinites are mentioned in Isaiah 49:12, which says, "Behold, these shall come from afar, and behold, these from the north and from the west, and these from the land of Sinim." According to the perspectives of John Wesley and John Gill, the reference to the land of Sinim can be interpreted in two ways. For some, Sinim is related to nomadic peoples, while others argue that the text refers to a city called Sin located in Egypt. Thus, the land of Sinim could be understood as a reference to Egypt. However, Manasseh ben Israel, cited by John Gill, proposes an alternative interpretation, suggesting that the Sinites mentioned in the text are actually the Chinese. He bases this interpretation on the fact that Claudius Ptolemy, in his work Geography, referred to China as the land of Sin. Furthermore, in other historical and biblical contexts, the word sin is mentioned. For example, in the Chronicles of Jeremiah, Sin is identified as one of the sons of Canaan. It is also associated with a desert between Elim and Sinai, as recorded in Exodus 16:1 and Numbers 33:11-12. In the context of ancient Mesopotamian religions, Sin was the name of the moon god, the father of the sun god Samus Sumerian, Utu, and in some myths, of Ishtar Sumerian, Inanna, the deity of Venus. This formed an astral triad of deities. Regarding linguistic identification, various words and prefixes related to Jin or variations of the name are often associated with ancient China. For example, Jian is the capital of Shaanxi province. Jian is an autonomous region in China. There are also other variations such as Shanghai, a major Chinese city, Shangji, a Chinese province, Shandong, another Chinese city, Shenyang, another Chinese city, and Tianjin, also a Chinese city. These terms and ancient references often allude to Chinese origin, suggesting that the ancient Chinese may have some connection to the Sinians or Sinites mentioned in the text. In addition to Sin being considered one of the ancestors of Asian peoples, including not only the Chinese but also the Japanese, Koreans, Filipinos, Indonesians, and other ancient groups, it is believed that over time, his descendants mixed with the descendants of Tegarmah, resulting in different lineages. These divisions would include the native indigenous peoples of the Americas, who arrived long ago from Asia, as well as the Chinese, Japanese, Koreans, Filipinos, Indonesians, Mongolians, and others, all considered descendants of Sin, possibly influenced by the lineage of Tegarmah. People with lighter skin tones may have descended from Tegarmah, while those with shades of brown skin, ranging from light brown to medium beige, may have origins in Sin, the son of Canaan. This relationship can explain the phenotypic variations in skin tones found among Native Americans compared to some Asian peoples. Scientific research has already confirmed the Asian origin of some Native American peoples, resulting from ancient contacts and interactions between these cultures. These cultural exchanges gave rise to new languages and dialects, known as Far Asian languages and Proto-Caribbean languages. Some even point out similarities in intonation and speaking patterns between the Japanese language and some Native American languages. Some linguists propose this assumption, also highlighting possible sound similarities, especially between the Japanese language and some Native American languages in North America. Indeed, the relationship between the Chinese and their possible descent from Sin and Tegarmah is widely discussed and often based on historical and mythological evidence. Their land, often called Sinan, has been associated with these ancestors, with Sin and Tegarmah considered the progenitors of the ancient Mongolic Chinese family. Ancient records, such as Egyptian monuments, depict these peoples with distinctive features, including prominent noses, full lips, large cheeks, and hairless or beardless faces. The range of skin tones, varying from brown to lighter shades and even reddish-brown, shows notable similarities to some indigenous people. Hair is often described as black and straight, while eyes are mentioned as dark brown or deep brown. Some representations also suggest slightly slanted eyes. The name Tegarmah itself, which means pulled or broken, could indeed be a reference to the appearance of their eyes. The term Kiti in Hittite cuneiform, which translates as Kaitai, represented a powerful nation in the Far East, known as Kitai, and this reference has persisted over the centuries in the term Kitai. These historical and etymological connections are fascinating and continue to be the subject of study and discussion among historians and linguists. The Kitai were an ethnic group that belonged to the ancient Chinese primordial family. The connections between the Chinese and the Kitai were evident in various aspects, such as their clothing, the style of shoes they wore, and the way they braided their hair, among other details. Historical representations often depicted them with prominent cheeks, and craniologists noted common similarities between them and other Mongolic ethnic groups. The figure of Sin plays a significant role in the Far East, being associated with the possible origin of Chinese civilization. The Chinese themselves often point to the capital Shenzi, whose name suggests Father Sin, as the most likely place of origin of their civilization. Furthermore, Shangfu, mentioned in Assyrian records as the Bo-Shen, is translated today as the place of the western capital of China. The Chinese have a tradition that refers to Fu Shi, or Fo Hai, a figure who, similar to the biblical Noah, appeared in the mountains of Qian and was surrounded by a rainbow, evoking parallels with the biblical account after a flood that covered the world. Fuxi also offered animal sacrifices to God. This tradition about the origins of the Chinese is very similar to the record in the book of Genesis. Sin, in turn, was part of the third generation after Noah, which could provide an appropriate temporal context for the initial emergence of Chinese culture. This connection with Sin is also evident in the nomenclature, since people who came from the Far East for trading purposes were called Sin by the Scythians. Ptolemy, a Greek astronomer, referred to China as the land of Sinem or Sinai. Furthermore, the book of Isaiah 49:12 mentions Sinem, indicating that they came from afar, not from the north or west. The Arabs, in turn, used terms such as Sin, Chin, Mahakan, and Makan to refer to China. Sin was associated with people who inhabited remote regions of Asia. However, I am interested in hearing your perspective on the intriguing origin story of the Chinese people. It is remarkable how much information there is available about Chinese ancestry, often related to the ancient Sinians and Sinites, whose roots go back to Canaan and Tegarmah. For some time now, I have been planning to create an additional video that explores the links between the Chinese and the Canaanites, as well as their relationship with the Europeans. Please share your suggestions about other ethnic groups whose biblical origins could also be addressed. Thank you for following us this far, and don't forget to like and share with friends and family who share an interest in biblical genealogies. God bless you. See you soon.